Hello again, folks. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony. Good to see you, Eric.
Hey, Bob. Here we are, the wonders of modern technology, the good graces of Zoom, and eventually through the services of Manhattan Neighborhood Network, putting Media Watch back out there into the ether. So we're doing a little pre-taping, and because it's the kind of evergreen stories that need to be looked at, why don't we just do overview of the upcoming 2020 elections, because all the stuff that's in the news with VP picks, et cetera, et cetera. So that being the case, do we want to start off with the leftovers from the previous election? Do you want to take a look at what's been said, done, and talked about on foreign interference in our elections? Would that be a good place to jump?
That's as good a place to start. This has been another weird week in politics, weather, and everything else. So we might as well start there.
Okay. I've seen a number of different stories, of course. But the consensus seems to have been that the Russians are definitely interfering in the 2020 elections, and that's the intelligence community consensus, which most of the media seem to have picked up on and run with. And I saw a couple of reports that the intelligence community reports that specifically highlighted that the most serious threat to the 2020 elections was the Russian interference threat. They also mentioned that China was sort of interfering, and in essence, I believe we're actually hoping that Donald Trump would get defeated. Whether or not they were taking any active measures to make that happen.
Yeah,
the intelligence community sort of hinted that they probably were.
Yes.
They did seem to feel that even though Iran might be doing something and China might be doing something, the Russians were the serious foe. Is that what you've seen and heard?
If you talk to the cybersecurity experts, right, they're seeing the traffic come from the countries of the former Soviet Union, but Russia is the central point of a lot of this traffic, this traffic that intends to meddle with the elections. I can already see the bots going through Twitter every time Trump tweets something, which is often. You see the bots kick in on both sides, supporting him and trying to rile up opposition, basically the old divide and conquer technique. It's definitely out there if you just look at the cybersecurity tracks.
I saw two stories, and I wasn't able to parse whether it was the intelligence reports, and it may have been both, but the thrust of the report was the intelligence community were pressured to modify the latest report about Russian interference to play down the Russian interference and play up other actors like China and Iran, not because they wanted to, but because this current White House wanted to not play up Russian interference. Did you see that report?
I did not see that report. I saw coverage of the report, and we've unfortunately seen this before. The way this administration dismisses any derogatory information about Russian meddling here and there. That it did not surprise me.
Yeah. That's just 2016 revisited.
Yeah, it is.
So actually, we know that there's meddling. We know it's going to continue. We know it's going to be from the Russian side, full bore to get to Donald Trump re-election. I saw another report about some reporter from OAN, the One American News, actually, after the Kamala Harris announcement, which I'm sure you're going to dig into later, she was quoting some online source with some negative story on Joe Biden. And the headline, which I thought was a very funny headline, OAN reporter quotes online source and Guess what? Wait for it. Guess what the background behind the website was? Wait for it. Drop the shoe. Oh, Russian origin. So it's another example of the Russian already taking traction, because here's some quote online or reputable, questionable, One American News outfit, which I guess is like Trump propaganda version 2, right after Fox News.
Yes, Fox obviously being the leader
Yeah,
in this
One
area.
American News. Yeah, right. She's like favored nation at the White House press briefings.
Yes.
He gets called up so she can throw softball questions.
Yeah, there's a New York Post reporter who's in the same camp. He spoke up again this week. We're taping Thursday before Monday, but yeah, he has his. It's a veritable plant at the conference. These folks.
So that stuff is really running full bore. It's interesting because the folks at NBC Universal, the Chuck Todds and the people do what's that, Meet the Press and those folk, they were doing a report card, and I might as well quote their report card just to give people a sense of the stuff that we've been watching, that we've noticed, and we're not the only ones. I guess some people in the mainstream media are also paying attention. Here is their list of stuff that they've noticed. One, Trump installed a new postmaster general who was actually a campaign donor, who gave millions of dollars to the Trump campaign, but he's the new postmaster general. And he's now instituted new, quote, cost-saving measures that have definitely slowed mail delivery nationwide and sparked fears about absentee ballot delays. So messing with the post office. Okay. Trump has said on more than one occasion, we have heard him at these weird press conferences saying he's going to block any deal in the COVID relief fund that's going to, in any way, shape, or form, come up with any dollars to bail out the postal system. Now, we know the postal system has already been targeted by Republican administrations for years. They passed this act back in 2006 that went in effect in 2007, where the Postal Service had to front load pension payments for their retirement system all the way up to the year 2056. And so every year they were supposed to be paying something like $5.5 billion into a pension fund for retirees, some of whom may not yet have been hired by the post office. This is a, excuse my language, effed up law that has put a financial burden on the Postal Service since 2007 that they have not been able to come out from under. And
it's to their credit that they're functional at all.
Considering, no other corporation in America, private or government, have to prepay their pensions prior to 50 years down the road when the law was passed. 2006, 50 years was 2056. They had to, and then the payments were front loaded so that they had a high cost. Actually, they were prepaying giant sums at the front end of this 50-year amortization rate. So they went deep into the hole. And so, okay, targeting the Postal Service. That's another one of his election dirty tricks.
Yeah, and if you're wondering whether it's having any effect, I mean, I'm afraid it probably has with some of the balloting that we've had already. They've arrived too late for counting, and we were having this conversation earlier this week. I ordered something from California, a simple item that they took off the shelf and mailed the same day. It took from August 1st for it to go from El Monte, California to San Diego, which is a 2-hour drive. August 1st, August 6th to get from El Monte to San Diego. And then it only took 2 days for it to get from San Diego to New York. So, the local handling was screwed up to the point that it took that long. So it's happening already, and I'm afraid it's going to be in full-blown, as you would say, effed up state by the time we get to November.
Yeah, I saw a report that either Ohio or Illinois, one of those Midwest swing states, the attorney general or whoever the election commissioner people are for that state mandated that there can be no more ballot drop-off kiosk drop boxes. They just said, whatever's there, you can't add more. If the post office gets screwed up, you can't add more kiosk drop-offs for your ballot. As of today, which was yesterday, we're taping Thursday, which was Wednesday last week when this airs on Monday. So they are lockstep trying to make sure that balloting, whether it's absentee mail-in, balloting, dropping into a drop box, gets totally screwed up so that Donald Trump can figure out a way to steal this election. The Russians helped him steal the last one. Now the Republicans and the rest of the entire Republican Party with their voter suppression acts and all their stuff, they're trying hard to make sure they hold on to the Senate. They're actually putting dirty tricks into the forefront with not behind the curtains, right out front, so the American public can see it. So,
the lack of kiosks, I mean, the logic there is non-existent. The not adding the extra, ballot only boxes or kiosks, there's no logic. But go ahead.
their logic is, yeah, you can't vote, so your vote can't get counted, and we can win. We can steal this election. No, that's very good logic on their part. More dirty tricks. But the big dirty trick that really caught my eye, you and I talked about this earlier. Kanye West, rest his current soul, maybe when he comes back in another iteration, he won't be troubled with bipolar disorders or anything. But putting that aside, the fact that he has sucked himself right up inside Trump's rear end so deeply, hugging, kissing, being his good buddy, and getting lots of dollars for his company and the COVID relief stuff, means he's definitely a player in their camp and will stay a player in their camp, because they are now meeting with him. Jared Kushner had a meeting with him, and one of their other Republican Party operatives were meeting with him for the Wisconsin ballot, getting him on the ballot signature stuff. You probably saw something on those ballot signatures, and jump in with it, because I know people have been challenging them. But that's the straw man, third party, let's siphon off votes from the Democrats, dirty tricks.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about this before. Kanye West has the problem that he thinks we need to hear from him all the time. He has the ego such that he thinks everyone needs to listen every time he pipes up. And you remember the ridiculous press, whatever they called it, appearance in the Oval Office in 2018. Yeah. It was so comical as to have other countries laughing at us out loud. But most recently, in Illinois, he tried to get on the presidential ballot, and he came up a few thousand valid signatures short. So he's off that ballot for the moment. And in Wisconsin, he attempted to get on the ballot, and a number of things were wrong with it. Apparently his organizer got the papers in like 2 minutes late, something like that, according to my old, what replaced my old paper, the current Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And now they found that a lot of the signatures were had names like Mickey Mouse and Bernie Sanders and Kanye West, and all of these people who allegedly signed these signature forms had Milwaukee addresses. So all sorts of things wrong with the paperwork, all sorts of lawsuits being filed. But yeah, he's a pawn, an unfortunate pawn of this administration, meeting with Kushner, meeting with Trump. they're using him because he has value to them. And it's at the peril of the country that votes get wasted on someone not only shouldn't be unfit to run the country anyway, but votes that just don't serve any purpose.
Yeah, that White House meeting, I'm old enough to remember, and you probably may be too, but a lot of young people would not recall it. But I remember when Sammy Davis Jr. went for Dick Nixon back in one of those elections, which was like maybe because the Rat Pack people didn't get him invited to Kennedy's inauguration thing and whatever. And he figured, well, okay, if I'm going to be on the outside, I'll be on the outside all the way. And when Nixon won his, I don't know whether it was his nomination or the actual election victory, he was up there with the Nixon crowd and he wrapped his arm around Nixon's waist in a giant hug that was just, I still have that image singed in my mind. That Kanye West Trump thing in the White House was echoing that kind of an image. And it's today, this day, they both make me sick to my stomach.
Well, Sammy Davis, I saw his recent, the recent documentary that ran on
PBS. Yeah, great.
It was a good, great piece of documentary work. And he did get into his little friendship with Nixon. I forget the explanation. It softened me a little bit, but not enough. Yeah. So he did have a reason for having that kind of affection for Tricky Dick.
Yeah, I caught that explanation, and it still could not make me unsee that image. It was just so distressing to me. But anyway, those were the top of my list for the dirty trick stuff that this election is going to have to actually deal with from the Republican side. And of course, we know they're very desperate because they are so down in the polls across the board because of the incompetent handling of this coronavirus pandemic that, I mean, Mitch McConnell is scared to death of losing the Senate. And that's why you see all this, pull out the stops, destroy the post office, make sure there's no mail-in ballot, throw all kinds of doubt into the efficacy and the effectiveness and the legitimacy of mail-in ballots. Because guess what? As much as Trump wants to say mail-in ballots and absentee ballots are not the same thing, can you tell me what the difference is, Bob?
I'm at a loss. Not like I haven't read into it either, but yeah.
This mail-in ballot's been done since the Civil War. Yeah. And it's worked well since the Civil War. And there are states that have done this all mail-in ballot. They have no polling places, and they've done it quite successfully. And they have come out, even Republican states that have done it, and said, our percentage of voter fraud is so minuscule, we don't even worry about voter fraud. So I don't know what this dog and pony show is, this whistle of fraud and can't be counted on song and dance that Donald Trump, well, I know what it is. It's to make people doubt the accuracy of the vote tally. That's what it's all about.
It's the kind of misinformation he's been dealing with. I mean, if you just listen to it, you realize there's nothing there, but unfortunately his followers will just eat it up. If he says that people are being handed ballots on the sidewalk and asked to hand them in at this, he can say that and people would believe him. So it's a sad state of affairs that all of these shenanigans are being pulled out now. And yeah, they are desperate.
So on the flip side of the coin, the Democrats are usually playing defense against all these nefarious trickster stuff that the Republicans have been doing for years. This is not new. All this voter suppression stuff didn't start with Donald Trump. Donald Trump basically became the perfect front man for the Republicans' long drive to suppress the votes of people of color, poor people, youth, and students. They've been trying to do that because that constituency 9 times out of 10 votes Democratic. And so the Republicans, they've got me so angry I can't even pronounce their names. These Republicans are just seriously negative and plotting to actually destroy the democratic process of voting. But let's go to the positive side, which you have, Bob. Talk to us about the rollout and the historic announcement, and let's get some feedback on who and what, and let's get to the positive side of the upcoming 2020 election.
Well, I mean, we heard the announcement this week, a couple days before we taped here on this Thursday, that Joe Biden, finally made his choice. Kamala Harris will be his vice presidential nominee. And right away, the Twitter sphere exploded on both sides with the favorable comments, the negative comments. The trolls came out by the busload, by the truck, by the shipload. And there was just so much there. Now we're getting into whether she is black. I don't see where that's an issue.
That was Barack Obama law. He's not black, and he's not from here. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but it's the same thing we've heard before. She's not black. She wasn't born here, it's all coming out again. And then they're getting into the things that she said during the campaign against Biden, which is nothing new. Everybody bites on each other during the run-up to the final nominee. So
he knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he vetted all that, including looking at the tapes of her really laying into him.
Yeah, but think of the previous candidates who bit into each other and then ended up being either the nominee or in the administration. Think of Kennedy and Johnson. They went after each other. Think of Clinton and Obama. They went after each other. The George H.W. Bush called Reagan's economics voodoo economics, and for that he got the vice presidential nod. So if Kamala Harris went after Biden during the campaign, it's nothing we haven't seen before.
That's right. So pick up on some of the actual, because you were talking about some of the in the weeds stuff that first hit when the announcement came out about early on people saying, why they keep calling Kamala Harris a black woman? Doesn't she come from South Asian ancestry? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, even if you look back, Pointer, which does excellent journalism research, even in 2004, you can just Google that, and there was a story about how why is the press calling Kamala Harris black when she's all these other ethnicities? Does it matter? Does being black trump other ethnicities? It was a thoughtful piece. Didn't try to come into any real conclusions, but it's an issue that comes up and I've seen a lot of South Asian celebrations in the last few days, and of course the black community and the K-alphas are happy as heck. And so you see a lot of this questioning the ethnicities and does it matter come up. So it'll be a part of this discussion. I don't see how it affects. I'm more worried about her history as a prosecutor and other things than whatever ethnicity she might or might not be.
Well, the interesting thing is to pick up on what you were talking about, whether she's black enough or is black. Or one of the things that I always find of interest is black people in the African diaspora. Doesn't matter where they're from. Once they land in the 48 or 50 United States, if they look black or brown, they black. Yeah. I mean, they may say, I'm Indian, I'm African, I'm whatever, but the rest of the folk out there in North American US society, they walk into a room, they automatically label black.
Yeah.
Now, we know that for a fact. There is no getting around that. Now, some people actually try to differentiate and say, I'm not disowning my Indian mother. I'm not disowning my Irish father, whether he was in wedlock or raped my mother, or whatever, in the days of slavery. And it wasn't just Irishmen who raped Black women. It was a lot of English and French, and you name the ethnicity, they all did it. And so there is no purebred anybody in North America anyway.
I was going to make the exact same point. Go ahead.
So, but for somebody like Kamala Harris, what that does, and they keep saying this is the American story, is because it is the American story when you talk about an immigrant parent from India. You have an immigrant parent from Jamaica in the British West Indies, former British West Indies. And then you have this child born of these two immigrant parents who grows up in the contiguous United States as a Black-brown child who still has to be bussed, as she said in that exchange with Joe Biden, because they had these segregated schools that needed integrating. And just as an aside, the schools today, North and South, are more segregated now in 2020 than they were when the busing laws were passed.
Yes.
Desegregate them. That's a fact. There have been enough studies done to come out with that conclusion that I can say that without having to go back and say, I think. No, we've read the studies.
Yes.
So,
And we have just about a minute left, but go ahead.
oh, time went really fast.
Yes,
But
it was a great discussion today. But
the
go ahead.
interesting thing is my Jamaican friends are over the moon
Yes.
because she got a Jamaican parent. My South Asian friends and colleagues, they're over the moon because she's got a South Asian person. The Black folk, Kamala Harris went to Howard University. I think my daughter was at Howard at the same time. She was at Howard, but I think my daughter might be 2 years ahead of her or something like that. They're contemporaries, but not exactly the same year, if memory serves me correctly.
25 seconds.
And both of them ended up, I believe, at Berkeley Law. And so there is this kind of, when she was at Howard and she's pledging an AKA sorority, you know she's Black. whether the rest of the folk want to call her Black, she identifies with being Black. That's why she's pledging AKA.
And we're just about up.
All right, this has been Media Watch, folks. I'm Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And we'll catch you the next time. Check us out on YouTube.
At Media Watch EVT and at the same address on Twitter.